Chopper just did something that should be impossible. He reversed the Dami Reversi on a giant without killing him. This is something no one has been able to do, and Chopper doesn't even have Haki. But what if the secret lies in Chopper's fruit? We know that the gods referenced in the One Piece Harley, such as the Sun God, have actually become devil fruits that people ate. And there is one mysterious deity in particular, the Forest God, that can do exactly what Chopper just did: tame demons. We were told that Chopper's fruit is just the Hito Hito no Mi, but just like we were originally told that Luffy's fruit is just the Gomu Gomu no Mi, what if this too was a lie? What if that's why Chopper's Zoan is unlike any other Zoan? What if that's why Chopper, despite having the supposed standard human fruit, can't actually turn into a human, only variations of a deer-man hybrid? Because what if all along Oda has been teasing over and over the revelation of a deer god of the forest, even going so far as to open the Elbaf arc with this foreshadowing? As crazy as it sounds, Chopper genuinely may have the Hito Hito no Mi model forest god, which would answer all the abnormalities about his Zoan fruit so far, the truth about his monster point, the reason the Blackbeard pirates were in Drum Kingdom in the first place, and it would explain the final mysterious deity that we have been shown over and over in Elbaf so far. But most importantly, it would bring full circle the true role of Chopper in the series, and the real purpose he has among the Straw Hats, all the way back to his original concept from pre-timeskip. So let me break down for you the shockingly growing mountain of evidence that Chopper, of all characters, may be the second God Fruit wielder in the story. But before we get into it, make sure to subscribe. But before we get into it, did you know that I used to be really big into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I mean the actual trading card game. Like, I bought physical decks, I went to tournaments, I still remember my favorite deck, Spellbooks. And if you play any trading card games today, or you played any in the past, then you know that opening packs is easily one of the most fun parts of the experience. Alright, opening a One Piece pack. Let's see what we get. Oh wait, we got Blackbeard! Oh, that looks good. We got Blackbeard and his whole crew. And Arena Club, the sponsor of this video, is a site where you can go online to purchase packs of your favorite card game and open them online. The pack openings are digital, but all the cards are real graded cards that other users have sent to Arena Club. So once you open a pack, you can keep your cards, you can sell your cards, or you can just roll it into another pack. And they've got everything here: One Piece TCG cards, Pokemon cards, baseball cards, and so on. They've also got limited drops going all the time, like Charizard only packs, Grail packs, all that. And those sell out fast, so you gotta jump on them. So if you want to try it out yourself, right now you can get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/Morge and using code Morge. Link in the description below. So that aside, to begin with, Chopper's attack undoing the Dami Reversi makes no sense on paper. So far, undoing Dami Reversi can only be done by killing the target, but Chopper's attack very clearly does not kill the giant, and in fact barely even damages him. So what causes the Dami Reversi to be undone? We know it wasn't Haki, as Chopper doesn't use that. It's not even like Chopper pulled out some medical trick to exorcise the demon from the giant. Chopper just hit him and the curse was undone. Meaning that there's something unique about Chopper that has nothing to do with Haki, his physical strength, or his medical expertise that allows him specifically to be able to counter Dami Reversi and exorcise the demonic spirit from the giants. By a simple order of elimination, the only thing left that is unique about Chopper that would allow him to do this when no one else can is Chopper's Devil Fruit. But why would that be? There shouldn't be anything special about the Hito Hito no Mi, right? Well, what if Chopper's fruit wasn't just the Hito Hito no Mi? What if it was actually the Hito Hito no Mi model Forest God? As we have been told that the Forest God has the power to tame demons, which is exactly what it seems that Chopper is able to do here. And you might be saying to yourself so far, that's insane that Chopper would secretly have the Forest God fruit of all things. And well, no, it's not insane. We literally spent 1,000 chapters being told that Luffy had a Paramecia rubber fruit of all things, before finding out in the span of one fight that it's actually a Zoan, a Hito Hito model Zoan, of a god whose name we literally just learned. If Oda could randomly drop all that on us all at once, then there is absolutely no reason that revealing that Chopper Zoan is actually a mythical Zoan would somehow be a step too far. And if anything, the setup for Chopper's fruit to actually be the Forest God fruit has far, far, far more setup than Luffy's jump from the Gomu Gomu no Mi to Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. After all, from the very beginning, Chopper's fruit was clearly abnormal from other Zoans. It doesn't function the way that normal Zoans are supposed to. Every normal Zoan should have a base form, aka one's original form, a hybrid form where one can turn partway into their Zoan creature, and finally a full Zoan form where one can turn completely into their Zoan creature. But Chopper's fruit doesn't really work like that. When we first meet him, he does of course have his original form where he is a full reindeer, and then his hybrid form does seem to turn him into a half human, half reindeer, but then his full Zoan form doesn't actually turn him into a human. If Chopper is truly eaten the Hito Hito fruit, the quote-unquote human Zoan fruit, then he should always have been able to transform into a full human, but instead we got this Yeti type transformation. And this was actually a huge part of Chopper's story in general. The entire reason Chopper became an outcast and was referred to as a monster in the first place is precisely because he couldn't properly turn into a full human, only into this strange form. So Chopper was granted intelligence that made him too smart to be amongst other reindeers in his normal form, but he was simultaneously unable to turn into an actual human in his full Zoan form. What exactly was happening here? Well, the simple answer would be if Chopper's fruit was not just the Hito Hito no Mi, rather much like the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika, or the Hito Hito no Mi model Daibutsu, it's actually very likely that Chopper's fruit is a mythical model of the Hito Hito no Mi model Forest God. Again, considering what happened with Luffy's fruit, the precedent is already there. So let's take a look at the Forest God evidence. So to begin with, just in general, the Forest God Devil Fruit should exist. Vegapunk already explained that everything that people imagine and believe deeply in becomes a reality in the form of Devil Fruits. And clearly the Forest God is a prominent part of multiple religions in the One Piece world. Just as the Sun God Fruit exists, so too should a Forest God Fruit exist. And this is further reinforced by the fact that more and more beings referenced in the Harley text are apparently going to be real in the final saga. For instance, the Serpent of Hellfire, as I explained in detail in this video. So if a Forest God fruit exists, why would that be Chopper's fruit? Well, the singular description of what the Forest God's power is pretty much exactly what we see Chopper inexplicably do in Elbaf. The Forest God tames demons. That is the simplest, most to-the-point, one-sentence description that answers the mystery of Chopper and the Dami Reversi interaction. Chopper simply touches the Dami Reversi giant, and just like that, the demon housed within the giant disappears. Again, Chopper didn't kill the Dami Reversi giant, he didn't use haki, he didn't use medical medicine, there's nothing he did besides touch the giant, and just by touching the giant, the demon within him left. Chopper's fruit actually being the Forest God fruit would perfectly explain Chopper's innate ability to tame demons. And you might be wondering why now? Why in Elbaf would we randomly get the reveal that Chopper has the Forest God fruit? And well, here's where it gets really interesting. We know that all the deities who are important to Elbaf culture have been frequently referenced throughout the arc. The Sun God, the Great Serpent, the Warrior God, but there has actually been one mysterious deity in particular that has been shown over and over again as a major figure for the Elbaf giants who still has not been explained. This strange deer skull deity. This figure is shown prominently throughout Elbaf culture. It is in fact the figurehead on multiple Elbaf giants' ships. And most interestingly, this was the appearance that Rodo donned at the beginning of the arc when he proclaimed himself to be a god. Now technically Rodo was claiming himself to be the Sun God, but we know that all the Elbaf giants in every single visual depiction and description are aware that the Sun God is this white-clad warrior, which indicates that Rodo was just wearing whatever attire he had available to declare himself the Sun God. But the fact that Rodo does consider himself to look like a god when wearing the deer skull, coupled with the fact that this deer skull is clearly a major part of Elbaf culture, does suggest that the deer skull does represent a deity. I believe that considering Elbaf is built on the back of a giant tree, that the Forest God is likely also a huge part of Elbaf culture, alongside the Sun God and the Warrior God. And that's why we see this deer skull everywhere, because that is their depiction of the Forest God. Part man man, part deer. This would make a lot of sense since in fiction in general, everywhere you look, it is extremely common for forest deities to be some variation of a great deer or elk. So if we start to put things together, remember, Zoan fruits have a mind of their own. Zoan fruits choose their users. So just as the sun god Nika fruit chose Luffy precisely because Luffy best represents the sun god, always laughing, smiling, and fighting for freedom, what then would the Zoan fruit of the forest god, a part man, part deer deity, choose? Well, the forest god fruit would of course choose someone from the forest. It is in fact perfectly natural for that fruit to choose a deer rather than a human. This would explain so much. This would explain why Chopper, even in full Zoan form, does not turn into a complete human, because he doesn't have a pure human fruit. He has the forest god model, and the forest god still looks like a humanoid deer rather than a pure human. That's why Chopper has the ability to tame demons with a single touch, because that is the power of his fruit, the forest god fruit. That's also why Oda has been showcasing the imagery of this deer deity for so long associated with the Elbaf giants. And that's why Oda even started the arc with the imagery of this deity, because in this arc we're going to be peeling back many layers of lore, and that includes revealing Chopper's true fruit powers. And even more interestingly, as others have pointed out, this would even explain why the Blackbeard pirates were in Drum Kingdom in the first place. Remember, our first mention of the Blackbeard pirates was all the way back in Drum Kingdom, where for some reason, the crew had chosen to attack this particular kingdom, which is an interesting choice since pre-timeskip, the Blackbeard pirates for the most part weren't trying to cause too much trouble to the islands that they went to. For the Blackbeard pirates to genuinely ransack the entire kingdom suggests that they may have been looking for something in particular. And Oda may have even teased this again later in the story, when it's revealed post-timeskip that the Blackbeard pirates are hunting down devil fruit users for their fruits. And funnily enough, it's Chopper who reacts worried that they would be after his fruit, with Usopp responding, why would they want the human fruit? It's seemingly a throwaway gag, but it reminds me of this moment with Luffy, where Oda also teased the truth behind Luffy's fruit. Momonosuke asks Luffy how to turn back into a human, and Luffy says, I don't know, I'm not a Zoan. Which was of course Oda's way of slyly hinting at the truth. So what if this too isn't a joke? What if all along the Blackbeard pirates were searching for Chopper's fruit? And that even explains their starting point in the story, pillaging Drum Kingdom of all places. And the parallel to Luffy also would explain a lot behind how Chopper's fruit has functioned so far, because you might be saying, wait Morge, Chopper in full Zoan form doesn't turn into some forest god. But remember, from what we've seen so far, the quote-unquote, the god devil fruits don't function the same way as other Zoans. Luffy had to fully awaken his fruit before he could turn into the sun god Nika. And I suspect the same is the case for Chopper. It's likely only when he fully awakens his fruit that he will become the full forest god deity. And a huge giveaway that this is the case is the appearance of Chopper's monster point. See, I believe all evidence points to Chopper's monster point being a partial Zoan awakening, but not a full Zoan awakening. This is because Chopper's monster point is identical to what we saw with the Impel Down guards. We were told that the Impel Down guards were awakened Zoans, but later on it became clear that they weren't true awakened Zoans. We now know that all truly awakened Zoans gain the signature clouds around their body, signifying the full awakened form. Instead, the Impel Down guards, much like Chopper's monster point form, clearly had their physical strength and durability greatly enhanced, but they were also reduced to mindless beasts, without full control of their bodies, and they didn't have any clouds around them. This suggests that these are all examples of partial Zoan awakenings. This makes a lot of sense, as the Rumble Ball itself essentially forces the evolution of Devil Fruit abilities, suggesting that Chopper, through experimentation, likely forced his fruit towards awakening without realizing it, but didn't fully awaken it, leaving him in a semi-awakened state like the Impel Down guards. Now, if Monster Point is, as has been implied, a partial awakening of Chopper's fruit, then consider how Monster Point changes Chopper's appearance to become remarkably similar in shape to this deer deity's skull. The resemblance is genuinely uncanny. As such, it's very likely that fully awakening his fruit will complete the transformation, and Chopper will actually look like the forest god and gain new powers, just like Luffy only looked like the sun god and gained new powers after fully awakening his fruit. And the final parallel to how Luffy's God Fruit functions is that both Luffy and Chopper seem to get passive powers even before their awakening. Luffy only truly gains the Sun God's abilities in his awakened form, but even without being in his awakened form, Luffy still always has the Sun God's passive ability of always being rubber. Similarly, Chopper likely will only truly gain the Forest God's full abilities once he has his awakening, but we can see that even without being in his awakened form, he still has the Forest God's passive ability of being able to tame demons. This is also likely why Oda hasn't had Chopper awaken his fruit yet, because Chopper's awakening will be a major moment in the series, one that Oda has been saving for Elbaf, the arc with all of One Piece's most important lore reveals. And I imagine that at this point viewers may still be protesting that no, this is simply wrong for Chopper of all people to have one of the most important fruits in existence. And to that I'd say, let's just be honest, at this point, one by one, practically every Straw Hat is turning out to be a special chosen one in some way. Luffy was initially just some kid from East Blue, but he turned out to be the destined Sun God. Zoro was also initially just some kid from East Blue, but oh wait, turns out he's the heir to the greatest swordsman of all time. Sanji was just some chef's apprentice, but oh wait, turns out he's the ultimate creation of scientific experimentation. Frankie is the inheritor of the ancient weapon Pluton and the successor of legendary shipwrights. Robin was the only one in the world who can read the poneglyphs, and hell, even Brook is now turning out to have had a super important secret pass. Like it or not, the trend is that Oda obviously likes to make the Straw Hats super special and destined in some way. Chopper having the Forest God fruit all along is completely par for the course with the Straw Hat reveals that we've been getting so far. And again, Chopper having the Forest God fruit is objectively far less of a leap than Luffy turning out to have the Sun God fruit. Chopper as a half-man, half-deer turning out to have the powers of a half-man, half-deer deity isn't anywhere close to as big of a change as we got with Luffy's abilities with the Nika reveal, especially considering it makes sense that the Forest God fruit chose Chopper, not just because the Forest God would naturally pick a user from the forest, but because it fits Chopper's character. Chopper's whole thing is that he has the kindest heart out of anyone. The very trait that makes Chopper a great doctor would naturally be the very same trait that might draw the Forest God Devil Fruit to choose him out of all beings in the forest. I would even argue that the Forest God's ability to tame demons and essentially cure those afflicted by the devil's power is perfectly in line with what Chopper symbolizes. Chopper freed the giants from Dami Reversi not through force or violence like the others did, but rather through curing them with his touch. Chopper did, after all, say that he would one day become the ultimate panacea, who can cure anything. Being able to cure individuals of even the devil's black magic does seem to be naturally in line with what Chopper represents. But you might be saying, okay, well that's all well and good, but isn't the elephant in the room that it's ridiculous for little Chopper to suddenly have the powers of a god? Isn't Chopper meant to be part of the weakling trio? It doesn't make sense for him to suddenly become one of the strongest Straw Hats. And oh, how we all forget. Post-time skip has truly warped our perspective of Tony Chopper and made us forget what this character once was. The Legends are here. This month you can get our brand new collection, the Legends Poster Collection. 12 dynamically illustrated One Piece legends with 12 hidden iconic moments. Get Fiery Ace with his hidden Battle of Destiny. Get the Defiant Roger with his hidden legendary laugh. Or for this month only, you can get Grinning Loki with a hidden tragedy, and many more. And this month, you can buy 2 posters and get any 3 free with the deal auto-applied at checkout. And that's not just from this collection. You can buy 2, get 3 from any posters you like, spanning all of our collections, including past boss posters, island posters, and ships posters. The buy 2, get 3 free deal is only running for this month, and Loki's poster will be gone from our store forever after this month. So make sure you get your deal today by hitting the link in the description below. Let's ignore post-time skip and walk down memory lane. Back to the true, original concept of Chopper. Pre-time skip, the concept of Chopper was that even though normally Chopper was not one of the crew's stronger fighters, ranking well below the monster trio and the likes of Robin, Frankie, and Brook, Chopper had a secret, a hidden power that could be brought out to make him essentially Hulk out and become impossibly strong. literally the strongest Straw Hat, at the expense of his own sanity. Monster Point Chopper immediately crushed Kumadori with far greater ease than even Gear 2nd Luffy or Frankie could defeat Kumadori's equals, Blueno and Fukuro. In fact, Kumadori couldn't even scratch Monster Point Chopper in this form, putting Chopper well above the rest of the Straw Hats in power pre-time skip. This is confirmed later on, when we see that Monster Point Chopper is capable of easily throwing entire mountain peaks, and one-shotting enemies nearly the size of ores. There are a lot of instances that show Monster Point Chopper's strength still holding up in the New World, meaning that back during pre-time skip, yes, Chopper at his full potential was indisputably the strongest Straw Hat. That was the original concept of Chopper. He's a character who appears to be the cute, cuddly baby of the crew, part of the weakling trio, but in actuality he had this monster within him that could be unleashed to make him absurdly strong. It's just that post-time skip, Oda seemingly got rid of that dynamic. Now Chopper has been reduced to just being the cute, cuddly mascot of the crew, without secretly being super powerful underneath. Chopper still has Monster Point, of course, but the rest of the crew got huge upgrades that make Monster Point far weaker in comparison. And Monster Point is fittingly no longer even a berserker form for Chopper anymore. So it seems like the concept of Chopper as the crew's Hulk was thrown out of the window. But what if it wasn't? What if Oda was always going to bring that dynamic back, with the post-time skip version being that Chopper will now be able to awaken into the full Forest God form as a primordial and very possibly berserk deity? Because remember, that wouldn't suddenly break the crew's power scaling hierarchy and make Chopper unreasonably strong. It's the opposite. It would just be restoring the natural order of what Chopper is supposed to be. The Straw Hat's fourth secret monster. So let me know if you believe Chopper actually has the Hito Hito no Mi model Forest God in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video then definitely like and subscribe. And if you want to hear how I think the Rumble Ball is the key to all this, then you can listen to my weekly podcast that just dropped by becoming a member or by supporting me on Patreon. Link in the description below.